Hello there, my name is Rick, and in this video I'll be taking you through sensor troubleshooting steps for the STS series. First off, I'm sorry to hear that our sensors are not working as expected. Troubleshooting is never fun, but hopefully you found this video before starting to bang your head or the sensors against the wall. The good news is that our sensors are very easy to troubleshoot once you understand how they go together. This video covers that and should provide a quick solution to your problems. We'll start by going over some basic troubleshooting steps for common problems. If those don't work, then we'll move on to advanced troubleshooting. That starts with important terminology, precautions, and supplies, then moves into procedures based on the output being received from the sensor. The video has timestamps, so you can skip to whichever part is most relevant to you, but please watch the introduction first to avoid damaging the sensor. To start with, let's check the wiring. Inspect it to verify that the connections are secure and there are no signs of water damage. To review, the red and black wires are for the main parameter, while the green and white pair are for temperature. Both pairs are reversible, meaning either can act as the power or output connection. The last thing to note is the clear coated shield wire, which we always recommend installing to ensure accuracy. Connecting it to ground may solve any issues involving erratic readings. Next, examine the length of cable for any signs of damage. Number 3, if the sensor is producing an output, clean the electrode according to the instructions linked in the description and calibrate it if possible. This may be sufficient to fix your problem. If an electrode is more than a year old and responds slowly or drifts over time, then it may need to be replaced. If it lasted significantly less time than expected, then please contact support@Phionix.com. Otherwise, contact our sales team at sales@Phionix.com for a replacement. If your issue is not solved by the previous steps, then we'll continue on to advanced troubleshooting. But before going into the procedures, we must go over the nomenclature of STS series sensors so that instructions are clear. Here we have the cable connector, the housing with the circuit board inside, and the electrode inside the electrode body and protected by the electrode guard. Note that the design of connectivity sensors are slightly different, with the electrode and electrode body combined into a single part that cannot be separated. On to precautions. Versions of the electrode cap have ridges that may catch on the dimple in the housing when trying to remove it. Gently twist while pulling to find the grooves that slide past the dimple. Whenever the electrode needs to be removed from the electrode body, avoid yanking on the cap because that may cause damage. The tips of pH, ORP, and dissolved oxygen electrodes are sensitive, so measurements can be affected by oil residue left from your hands or from small scratches. Always handle with care and put them in a place where they cannot roll away when working with them. Another precaution is to thoroughly dry off the sensor before unscrewing the cable or electrode. This reduces the risk of water entering into the housing and causing damage. And as stated before, make sure you have a dry place to work where there's not a risk of dropping the sensor into mud, water, etc. When opening the sensor, it is important to check if any moisture is present or if there's discoloration on the connectors, as that would indicate corrosion is occurring. Water could enter due to an ungreased or old or damaged O-ring, or from trapped water during previous maintenance. Lastly, whenever the electrode is removed, it must be reinserted at the proper depth to contact the circuit board. This depth is indicated when the depressed electrode cap barely touches the spring. For supplies, we recommend number 1, a dry workstation. Number 2, a Phionix STS series sensor. Number 3, a digital voltmeter or DVM. Number 4, a device to supply power and read current output, which could be a data logger, remote telemetry unit, etc. Number 5 is grease to cover O-rings. Number 6 is a towel to dry off the sensor. And number 7 is a rubber band. After long periods of not being opened, the sensor may seal extremely tightly, and a rubber band can help grip the electrode or cable body to turn it more effectively. Please note that other common tools may be recommended depending on the procedure. Okay, on to the troubleshooting segments. They are broken down as follows. Number 1 is no output. Number 2 is an output greater than 0 and less than 4 milliamps. Number 3 is a steady 4 milliamp output. Number 4 is an erratic output above 4 milliamps. And number 5 is an unresponsive or drifting output above 4 milliamps. Please use the progress bar at the bottom of this video to scroll to whichever symptoms are occurring with your sensor. A 0 milliamp output indicates the sensor is not receiving power. Start by double checking the wiring and cable. If all is fine there, then measure the voltage between a pair of wires when the power is turned on. If there is no voltage, then the power supply is not functioning properly, and we recommend checking with the manufacturer for troubleshooting information. If the voltage is steadily above 8 volts, but there is no output for the main parameter, then a connection is not being made inside the sensor. Start by checking the current output of the temperature wires. If there is no output, then the cable connector is likely not making contact. As mentioned in the precautions, checking the connection requires breaking the watertight seals. Always wipe down the sensor thoroughly to prevent water from entering the housing. Even a small amount of trapped water can cause corrosion over time. Unscrew the connector and check for any debris that may be preventing contact on the end. Also, check that the circuit board connectors are not oxidized or damaged by looking inside the housing. Now is also a good time to grease the O-rings. Once done, screw the connector back in and see if a current is being output by the temperature wires. If there is still no output, then the circuit board is likely not contacting the cable connector. To fix this, unscrew the electrode body and pull out the electrode. Gently rotate and pull until the electrode releases. Leave the loose electrode resting in the electrode body and use it to push the circuit board up to contact the cable connector. Do not twist the electrode while doing so, as this could damage the circuit board connector. Reinsert the electrode to the proper depth and screw back into the housing. Retest the sensor and confirm that it is reading properly. That concludes the troubleshooting section for fixing 0 milliamp outputs. If your problem is not yet solved, then please reach out to our customer service at support@phionics.com. On to the next section. If the output is between 0 and 4 milliamps, then the sensor is not being supplied sufficient power to function. The power supply must provide 8 volts DC or more. Check this by setting up a DVM and measuring the voltage across the red and black wires while they are being supplied power. If the power supply is providing a lower voltage than it should, then check with the manufacturer for troubleshooting information. The other possibility is that the electrode is not making complete contact inside the sensor. Follow the instructions for steady 4 milliamp output in the next section to fix this. A steady 4 milliamp output indicates that the cable is connected to the circuit board, but the electrode is not, which could be caused by impact, during shipping or use, or if debris has entered the sensor. To fix this, start by unscrewing the electrode. As mentioned before, wrapping a rubber band around the plastic body may help if you find your grip slipping. Examine the electrode connector to see if anything may be obstructing a connection. Look inside to check the circuit board connector is clear and free of damage as well. Once removed, gently twist while pulling to take the electrode out. We recommend lightly greasing the outside to ensure the long-term health of the inner O-rings, which are responsible for creating a watertight seal around the electrode. Now is also a good time to grease the outer O-rings on the electrode body. Once done, place the electrode back in the body and press down on the electrode cap until the cap contacts the spring. Retest the sensor and confirm that it is reading properly. That concludes the troubleshooting section for fixing steady 4 milliamp outputs. If your problem is not yet solved, then please reach out to our customer service at support@phionics.com. On to the next section. There are a few common possibilities for erratic output. Number 1, the cable may be damaged and shorting somewhere. Double check along the length of the cable to see if there are any small cuts or gouges. If damage does occur, a replacement can be ordered by contacting sales@phionics.com. Number 2, the sensor or cable may be close to a high power machine or wire that is outputting excessive electromagnetic interference. Check for any patterns that coincide with heavy machinery turning on or off around the sensor. Move the cables away from any areas of potential electromagnetic interference. For more information on this, please see our article on eliminating electromagnetic interference in analog systems. Number 3. The metal housing may not be in contact with the sample solution. Number 4. The solution ground wire inside the sensor may not be making solid contact with the housing. Start by removing the cable and electrode. Now we are going to use the electrode to push the circuit board out of the housing. To do this, pull the electrode out of the electrode body and lightly rest it inside, leaving the electrode extended. Then slide the extended electrode into the housing, pushing and screwing as far as it will go until the circuit board can be grabbed. Once you have the circuit board out, lightly bend the solution ground wire upward. Slide the circuit board back in while avoiding the dimple and verify the wire is contacting the housing. While still holding the circuit board, twist it back and forth to scrape the wire against the housing. This removes any oxidized material from the surface of the solution ground wire. Once the circuit board is back in the housing, reinstall the cable connector, then reinstall the electrode. Test and see if this fixed your problem. Number 5. The cable connector or electrode may be making intermittent contact with the circuit board. Follow the instructions for fixing a steady 4 mA output from earlier in the video. That concludes the troubleshooting section for fixing erratic outputs above 4 mA. If your problem is not yet solved, then please reach out to our customer service at support@phionics.com. On to the next section. If there's a steady or slowly drifting output above 4 mA, then there are two possibilities. Number 1, the electrode may be coated in debris such as fats and oils that prevent contact with the solution. You'll likely know if your application involves debris that would cause this problem. To fix this, refer to the cleaning guides provided in the video description below. The second possibility is that the electrode may be damaged. This is extremely unlikely for conductivity sensors, but does happen if the glass bulb of pH or ORP electrodes gets cracked, or if the membrane tears on dissolved oxygen electrodes. Please note that this damage may be small and difficult to see, so it's tough to identify. If another electrode is available, either a spare or from another sensor, then replace the potentially damaged electrode and test if that fixes the output. If it does, then you know the electrode is the problem and must be replaced. Replacement electrodes can be ordered by contacting sales@phionics.com or visiting the Request a Quote page on the Phionics website. That concludes this video. If you're still having issues, then please reach out to us at support@phionics.com. We'll do everything we can to help. To stay up to date on all the latest content being released, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media using the links provided in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.